It's a complicated relationship. It's very competitive, and it's one that matters a lot to the United States for obvious reasons. And I think in the past 14 months now that I've been here in China, we've seen a continuation of all that. A difficult relationship where we're trying to stabilize ties between us, deepen the channels between us. We have a very clear policy, and what we've been trying to do since the president came into office is to invest in the strength of our own country for this long-term competition with China in the economic, technological, and military security realms. Second, he very deeply believes, President Biden, that we've got to prioritize our alliances. And I've been coming to China since 1988, and I've been involved with our policy in this part of the world for a long time. We've never had a stronger position, at least in my working lifetime, in the Indo-Pacific. And finally, and this is really the primary, I think, difference between us, we're competing on values. We believe in religious freedom and human freedom. We believe in our First Amendment and Bill of Rights freedoms for every American. We want that for the rest of the world. And of course, we have a very different, there's a very different philosophy here. So a highly competitive relationship, but also one, the two strongest powers in the world, trying as best as we can to work together on some of these big global challenges. Put it all together, daunting relationship to manage on both sides, but one that my colleagues and I out here in China for the United States government are proud to work on behalf of the American people. I think access for all of us in the U.S. government, and that includes members of our cabinet, has really ebbed and flowed. Our view is we need better channels between the two governments and deeper channels, and we are ready to talk. And it's particularly important to do that, of course, when you've got big problems and when you have major disagreements in the relationship. We've never been shy of talking, and we hope the Chinese will meet us halfway on this. He said, and I've been telling the Chinese he'll come here when conditions are appropriate for his visit. It gets back to the general issue of how two governments communicate. And the instinct that we have, and it's not just an instinct, it's a conviction, is that we need better, more reliable, more consistent channels between our two governments. There's just too much going on in the relationship. There are too many issues where we're highly competitive with each other that we ought to be talking consistently. What we really need is a more broad-based engagement at the cabinet level, and the United States is ready for that. So we hope that the government here will be ready as well. And it's hard for me to predict at this point when this kind of re-engagement will reoccur, but we have never supported an icing of this relationship. It's, when the president speaks about this relationship, and he's often asked about it, of course he notes the fact that we've been in a competitive relationship, but he often says, we don't want a conflict with China. We don't want to return to a Cold War with China. And we need greater stability in this relationship. I feel that acutely. Well, we'll have to see. Of course, we have been suggesting to the Chinese for many, many months that they be in contact at the highest levels with President Zelensky. So the call from President Xi Jinping was a good first step. But I think the answer to your question, Yoon, is we'll have to see what happens from here. China has a very close relationship with Russia, a supportive relationship with Russia. But certainly, we would like to see China be much more tough-minded in its advice to the Russians, and we'd like to see action to end the war as quickly as possible on terms, of course, that the Ukrainian government can accept. Well, John, Taiwan is a central issue, has been for decades and remains so now between the United States and the People's Republic of China. We've been very consistent, and we have not changed our one China policy. It's been based on the same principles that have guided us for 50 years now. The Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, and the 6 assurances. And at every opportunity, and I have had a multitude of discussions privately with the Chinese leadership on this issue, I enunciate that point. But we also say that, of course, the United States believes, and this is critical, that any resolution of the cross-strait differences has to be peaceful, because that's the right thing for us to be saying, because that's the only possible way that this is going to be resolved on a fair basis, this long-time dispute. And because, of course, the Taiwan Strait is a critical international waterway. Were it ever to be closed because of force of arms, it would have a major impact on the global economy, on container traffic, and on all the major economies that are in this part of the world. And so we've been consistent in that. We try to guide them as best we can, but we point them to the law. In the case of the Weaker Forced Labor Prevention Act, we point them to our clear actions in some of these technology areas where, frankly, we're just not going to give or allow the sale of advanced technology in some of these critical areas in the digital economy to the Chinese military or the national security civil military fusion here in China. We've been clear about that. I think that businesses are not confused about our message, but they are operating in difficult terrain. There's no question about it.